Welcome to Pythian's webinar series. Today our topic is when to invest in the cloud and what to consider. I'm joined by one of Pythian's cloud experts, Chris Presley. In a Q&A style, we will answer a few questions for companies who are still planning their way to the cloud. But before we start, Chris will give us a short introduction about himself and Pythian's experience with the cloud.
Thank you, Stephanie. My name is Chris Presley. I'm a solutions architect with Pythian. I've worked with Pythian for about 8 years now in a variety of capacities, mostly with Microsoft technologies. Pythian specializes in helping companies adopt disruptive technologies. When it comes to our experience with the leveraging cloud technologies, we are platform independent, vendor agnostic company providing services. We can and have helped organizations look at cloud-based technologies, figure out how to best leverage those technologies, adopt the technologies, and then support the technologies on a go-forward basis.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks so much, Chris. All right, so if adopting cloud is really just a matter of time, what are the cloud adoption barriers that companies are still concerned with?
Oh, a great question, Stephanie. So from what I've seen, the barriers to public cloud adoption haven't really changed over the years. It seems to be a fairly consistent set of reasons, and I haven't seen a lot new cropping up. And they kind of break down to a few, kind of 3 or 4 main ones. Security, control, and then what I've kind of a grouping of reasons which I call life in the cloud. So we'll talk about security. And I would say this is probably the most common barrier. And I think that while I think that it's certainly very valid, the cost of a data breach on one's brand is huge. So you know, it is important to consider. But the way I look at it is, and I'm not privy to the amounts that Google, Microsoft, or Amazon invest in security, but I feel pretty confident in saying that, in making a bet that they make greater investments than most organizations are capable of. This is their business, and any sort of security breach will kill they're in a battle for #1 cloud provider. Any sort of security related issues will quickly take them out of the race. So I think that they are capable and do invest more than most of us can. However, there are legitimate concerns, as I alluded to. Your organization may be subject to something like HIPAA or some other standard that you have to adhere to, or perhaps there are data sovereignty rules that you need to adhere to, where and that's where data may have to stay within the confines of a physical border. Or it may only be able to be accessed by people who reside in that border, or they may even need to be citizens and may even have to have security clearance. So there certainly are valid security concerns, but I've seen it kind of blanket used, and it hasn't always been. It's always a valid concern, but it hasn't been a valid barrier all of the time. And partners like Pythian and their competitors, as well as the cloud vendors, are very happy to talk security and compliance with organizations and help determine if it's really going to be a deal breaker, or if it's something that can be overcome. Now, the next one is, in my mind, is control. As IT workers, we can lose our job if we are not. We're held accountable for data being available in a disaster, the performance, and that sort of thing. So with public cloud providers, it's certainly not just perceived, but you are, depending on the solution, actually giving up a certain amount of control. And giving up control for something you're accountable for your job is something that makes a lot of us nervous. Now, when we're looking at the loss of control and we're thinking about that, most companies don't own their own data centers anymore. They rent space in a data center, so they don't have that much control. You may be allowed to go touch your physical machines. You may not be able to. Perhaps part of the administration and maintenance is actually outsourced, and you may not even have access to certain aspects of compute. So it could be a perceived loss of control rather than an actual loss of control, but it's a valid concern. We need to take a look at the solution and make sure that it's going to allow us to meet our accountabilities to our stakeholders and ensure that our business is functioning and able to continue to function no matter what. Which moves us then to what I kind of call life in the cloud, which is it's a handful of a couple potential issues because it is a little bit different. So we need to ensure that now we don't have to move everything to the cloud. We're only talking about moving certain services that make sense, but we need to ensure that the characteristics of the cloud, or the public cloud specifically, match up with the needs of our businesses. And so, many cloud services have their own SLA, and it's kind of an average to see 3 nines or say 99.95 and that sort of thing, which means a little bit of downtime. If you do the math, it's a little bit of downtime every week, or a little bit more downtime on a yearly basis. And that's without refund. Certainly, if the SLAs aren't met, there can be longer outages, and that means we get some financial compensation. But it's a real thing. If you Google clouds being down, cloud providers and downtime, you'll see a lot of fairly public articles. So it's important to ensure that whatever it is we have matches with the SLA. Another one is how do we deal with noisy neighbors? Depending on the solution that we're talking about, our neighbors may drag down the performance of the hosts and the machines that we're on. So there are ways around this. There are strategies in place. There are some storage options or other machine options that we can take a look at to mitigate this, but they of course come at an increased cost. Does our data need to move around? How will we get it in? How will we get it out? If production is in the cloud, is reporting staying locally? Maybe we think that it's cheaper to use a really large, some sort of reporting system, and we need to move large amounts of data back and forth. How will that all work? If it goes bad, how will that work? How will we kind of reinitialize it? That sort of thing. Are there other kind of characteristics about our application that just make more sense that just aren't going to work with our life in the cloud? So I think that these are all very valid barriers of cloud adoption, but I do think that we need to kind of unpack that a little bit and take a closer look and ensure that they are legitimate barriers to cloud adoption.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today, Chris. So to wrap this up, I want to simply remind the audience that whether they are already in the cloud, on their way there, or still have some questions, Pythian can help. Pythian Cloud Services combine more than 200 years of experience with multiple certifications in cloud platforms, including AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure. So when you're ready, contact us at info@pythian.com.